Welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I'll be covering every studio song the band has recorded and every bonus track that I can find. Each week we'll go over a new song from the beginning to where they are currently, and as they keep adding albums, I'll keep adding shows. Let the deep dive party begin.
In the magic garden, some were singing, some were dancing.
Hello and welcome to Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. I am your host, Scott Haskin, bringing you a show that is endorsed by the band Uriah Heep. Now, it is a fan-based show, but that's really cool, isn't it? I love that. I absolutely love that. While I am recording this, they are recording their 25th album, and I cannot wait to hear what they're up to. I'm anxiously awaiting, but we'll get there. In the meantime, while we wait, we got plenty of stuff to do. And today we're going to talk about a song called First Touch that was written for the Different World album. And here it is. Okay, I have listened to this part several times trying to dissect exactly what's happening here. So let's start with the simple stuff. So we've got our lead guitar track playing rhythm from Mick, and it sounds really good, that nice full body guitar sound. Then we have a second guitar track that's coming in to do some color and fill-ins, and that one sounds a little thinner, much like we talked about, I think it was in the last song, where we had that overall guitar sound that was thin until the rest of the band joined in. So that's going on. And then we've got some vocal O's going, which is pretty cool. But where it's throwing me off a little bit is the drums. And I'm a drummer, right? I should know all this stuff. But here's something that's kind of weird about it. And I'm not sure which direction they actually took to record this. It could be done a couple different ways. So the first way is you just play it. And that is possible that it was done that way. But here's the thing. So we've got those two tom hits in there. And the second one has a little bit of, it's either like a slapback delay on it or something that's causing an external third sound right after that second tom hit. Now, the reason that this is throwing me off is part because of that, because it's like an odd space where it's put. But I'm hearing a hi-hat hit at the same time as I'm hearing the snare, but then the tom comes right after. So it is possible that it was played straightforward that way, but it's also possible that the toms were tracked on separately. Which way they went, I have no idea. But either one could be done. So it's throwing me off just a little bit, and I'm not sure exactly how they're creating that third sound because it isn't exactly a delay of the drum. So it might be that there's a delay that's got another effect on it, like a slapback reverb maybe, or something, because it doesn't sound quite like a regular delay. So again, I'm just a little mystified, and it's rare that I say that about a studio recording. So I'm kind of intrigued and excited to see where we go from here. Okay, this will not be the first time I've made a bizarre musical comparison with a Uriah Heep song, but this kind of reminds me of something John Carpenter wrote for a film. And I'm trying to remember if it was Big Trouble in Little China or something else, but it has a sort of like a, mid-'80s film score feel to it. The beat is a little heavier on top of it than you would get from John Carpenter because he uses pretty much electronic drums on his stuff from the ones that I know. But the keyboards seem to have that feel to it. Again, sort of an Asian flavor without it actually being Asian themed. It's really weird. I don't know why I keep latching on to that. There's something about the tone, something about the sound that is bringing me towards that. And I have not been able to identify it yet. And it is bugging me, but hopefully one day I'll get to it. Maybe that's the connection. Maybe it's something John Carpenter did in Big Trouble in Little China, but it definitely reminds me of something if not that exactly, then it's something really close to that. Just can't quite get my hands around it. But it's got a good solid beat to it. I like the way that it sounds. Nice vocal coming in. Again, please just turn up the volume just a little bit more on Bernie. But apart from that, yeah, this is unexpected. You know, from the intro, we wouldn't have thought we'd be going to this more subdued part. We thought probably it would have been a little bit heavier, if anything else. But, you know, Uriah Heep are full of surprises.
I saw so many good things at one time. Mountains of emotion coming right into view. When I arose from my bed, I got that warm glow at the back of my head.
Can we talk for a minute about how good the bass is on this song? I mean, there are some sweet licks being laid down by Trevor here, and I really dig the sound of it. I'm going to guess again that that's a fretless bass that he's playing on. Either way, though, it sounds really good, and it's nice to see him able to, play back to his potential. There's a lot of songs, and a lot of it, too, could just be the style of music or the time where bands are doing different things. But, you know, Uriah Heep has been known historically for a very active bass player in the band. And Trevor's kind of been back and forth on that during his time. And it's really nice to see him, doing something that's a little more than the eighth notes. I think this is really cool. I love what he's playing in this song so far. But there are some really cool parts here that we've heard, a lot of nice transitions. I like the chord changes. It feels really good. The overall sound of the song is really nice and fits the album well. And it's just enjoyable to listen to. But the other thing I was thinking too, thinking of the time period, I would say, I don't know exactly what the years were, but I would say somewhere in the mid 80s into the early 90s, there was, kind of a trend to do what's called a gated snare. Now, what gating means is it basically is a gate that controls the noise, right? So you set the parameters. You say, from the time that you hear a sound noise gate, I want you to cut it off in 1 second or 3 seconds or, 8 milliseconds, whatever you set it at. So when you hear the snare, you're hearing just like the pop of the snare, and then the noise quickly just stops, right? There's no decay, there's no reverb that just kind of carries out that noise a little bit and makes it feel alive. It's a very tight, closed snare. So what they're doing is they're putting the noise gate on it, and that noise gate shuts down the decay of the snare. So you're just getting pop, not pop. That's the difference. So when I listen to this, and I do think about the 80s, because so many electronic snares were used, and a lot of those didn't have that decay as well. But it definitely fits the style of the time and kind of makes me think of things like the Miami Vice soundtrack or, a lot of the 80s bands that were out during that time playing electronic drums that would cut off. Some of it was done in the studio like this, where you actually had like a live snare drum and they would still put that gate on it because it was kind of trendy at the time. Not my favorite thing. It makes me feel like it's not real drums. Electronic drums are real drums in the physical sense, but I mean, it makes me feel like he's playing an electronic drum and not an acoustic snare, because they have very different characteristics, and they're killing the characteristics on the decay of the snare by using that gate on it. Some people like it. For some things, I think it really works for me. The one place that I could think of that it sounded the best was by Queensryche, Operation Mindcrime. To make the snare sound like a gunshot just really, really worked for me for that album. And for this, it's okay. It's not bad. It doesn't sound bad. It doesn't sound out of place. It's very much within like the realm of the sound of the keyboards. They just have that certain feel to them. But in general, I'm not a huge fan of the noise gate because, like I said, they just make me feel like I'm listening to an electronic drummer and not an acoustic drummer. And, really it wouldn't matter. But when you're listening to a guy like Lee Kerslake, you pretty much expect you're going to get acoustic drums. So it throws me off a little bit. We've heard that a bit during the last couple of albums as well. But that all might be part of that, I don't know, that Asian John Carpenter weird feeling that I'm getting in certain songs here. But interesting nonetheless.
every first encounter that we have. When I think I must be dreaming, you tell me that it's real. And here you are in my bed. I feel that warm glow at the back of my head.
Yeah, I love the vocal sound on this. You know, the pronunciation, the way that the lyrics flow just has a really good feel. It feels optimistic and passionate at the same time, like, like the first time you meet somebody and they just kind of make you raise your eyebrow a little bit with interest and you kind of want to see where things are going. Definitely for me has a really good warm feeling in the delivery, and I really like that. I love the overall sound, hearing the keyboards come through, the blend of that with the guitars, what the bass is playing, the drums doing some interesting things, especially during those last couple parts. There's so much cool stuff going on. This is really a very interesting and good song. That's a really nice, tasteful delay on the word touch. I like that. I like that they stop the line there so it kind of leaves room for that delay to carry out. That's very tasteful. And nothing really tries to come in before it's gone. It's just a nice, quick delay. And then we're done with that in time for the next line to start. And I'm really torn on the drums. It's so hard to say. And maybe some of you drummers out there will give me your input on this. But I really kind of feel like those toms were double tracked. And the reason I say that is because I'm hearing Lee gently riding a crash cymbal. It does not sound like a hi-hat during the chorus, but I'm hearing the crash, I'm hearing the snare, and I'm hearing a tom hit all at the same time. And it sounds like he's hitting two toms, not quite in a flam, but it just sounds thick enough to be two toms to me. So I kind of feel like he doesn't have four hands. And I really think those toms were done after the fact. Maybe they weren't. I don't know. But, as a drummer, somebody who's played for a few years, I feel this would have been very difficult to pull off. Had the cymbal dropped out, I wouldn't question it at all. But with that cymbal playing in there at the same time, I don't doubt Lee's talent, but I'm not sure how that would have been comfortable, reasonable, or maybe even possible to play. So drummers, tell me what you think. Try playing it and see what you think. See how it could be done and let me know. I look forward to hearing from you. I love when Bernie carries out a note like that. It always sounds so good. But I want to talk too about Mick, because Mick is playing a riff that goes again sort of in between the lines and really kind of fills up that void where the vocals stop. And it's amazing how quickly you can feel a little bit of emptiness as soon as you stop hearing a consistent sound. So, Bernie sings a line and then all of a sudden there's nothing there. But Mick is filling that in very, very nicely on this. I like the sound of that. Ooh, a nice gritty guitar solo there. I love that. I love the sound of that. Especially love the way it ended, because I was kind of expecting him to go up to his standard high note, and he didn't. It went a different way, and I like that. Also, I love the chord progression during that section. I know it's a repeat from a part earlier, but I really like that. I think it's interesting. It changes quite frequently, and it just kind of keeps you following something instead of just going, okay, now there's going to be, 2 bars of this note and then 2 bars of that note and then 4 bars of this. Like it's just very unique, and it keeps moving, and it's exciting. I really like the addition of the quarter notes on the bass drum there. That adds a little bit of push, I think. And we really needed some sort of change in here. I kind of feel like we've heard the chorus a lot in this song. And the song is just under 4 minutes, but I feel like we've listened to the chorus a lot. So if you're going to do that kind of repetitive part in a song, you've got to do something to spice it up, to change it, to make it different. And, sometimes you can do it with an effect. Sometimes you can do it by just changing the way an instrument plays. And I think that was a good move to increase the speed of the kick drum. Yeah, that was a nice return to the opening. I like the way that the song came full circle. That was pretty cool. I am going to go ahead now and declare that I think that those toms were overdubbed. And there's definitely sometimes that three things or more are being hit here. And I'm going to say it's dual toms that he's hitting. I also noticed how much heavier the toms sound. And if you were playing this, if you found some way to play all three things at the same time, those toms are not going to sound that heavy. They're just not. So I really think that they were boosted in the mix, a little bit of extra low end put on, but I think they were recorded separately. Now, let me be clear. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It doesn't matter to me. It's a matter more of the analytical side of me coming out going, wait a minute, how did they do that? I'm not bashing anybody for double tracking. I think it's great. I think it's about whatever makes the song sound the best it can be. You're going to have to find a way to get past it if you do it live. And that's where one of the biggest differences is between live and the studio. I mean, think about it. Most of the keyboard songs or keyboard-oriented songs in this band have 3 or more layers. A keyboard player only has 2 hands. So either you're going to sequence something, and that can be hard to pull off live because of the timing of it all. The fact that people play faster live, there's a lot of factors there. So that would be hard to pull off. So you really want to be able to find ways to do things that you could do naturally. You could play 2 keyboards, but it's really hard to play 3 at once. Now, that being said, that's one of the things I love about a live band when I go to see a live band is that it's raw. There are no studio workarounds. You can't triple track a vocal and make it sound like a really cool harmony. Well, you can, but again, it's one of those things that's really, challenging to pull off live. But the point is that live is this is how the band is. This is how they sound. This is what they are when they're, live and not taking all the time that they need to do what they want to do. When you're in the studio, that's almost like the band saying, you know what, here's the song, how we want it to sound. This is the way we're recording it. This is the record or the testament or the, permanent go-to for how this song was felt, how it was played, how it was meant to be. When we go live, we're going to play it the way we play it. It's going to be everybody playing one instrument. Maybe you got a keyboard playing 2 keyboards, or a keyboardist playing keyboards. You can't have a keyboard play anything. But that's the rawness of a live set versus recording in the studio. And that's why they're both so important. The studio, you can get away with a lot. You can do a lot of trickery, as we've heard. But live is live. And that's it. And so I like being able to hear something that this is the way we designed it. This is the polished stone. We want you to enjoy it as we wanted it to be presented. But then when you go see the band live and they do that song, it's going to be, here's how we feel the song in this moment right now. And not being able to fix something that's wrong or redo a part if you didn't like it. This is in the moment. We're all here together. This is everybody's energy coming together to create this, audience and band alike. So they're very important both of them, but they're also very different. And so I have no problems with doing studio overdubs. Again, it's just that analytical side of me that how did they do that? How are they making this happen? That kind of takes over. There's the engineering side of me. There's the performer side of me. There's just the general drummer in me that is going to look at things and go, wait a minute. That's interesting. Let's dissect this a little bit. It's just something that my brain does, especially as a musician and audio engineer. But that being said, overall, I think it was a great song. I think the chorus was a little bit repetitive. I feel like we heard that a lot. But apart from that, I really loved it. I loved the feel of the song. I loved the acoustical challenges to it, just the how did they do that part. But I love the passion in the song. I love Bernie's voice on this. Phil's keyboards are fantastic. Mick is doing some really good in-between parts that I absolutely love. Trevor is just playing exploding on this one as far as I'm concerned. And Lee's doing some really creative things too. It's like everybody just kind of went, let's get on our toes and see what we can really do here. And let's push the envelope a little bit. I kind of feel like this has been a better album as far as that goes than becoming a little bit more towards the progressive band that we've known versus the here's how songs are written in this time period, or we're going to lay back a little bit and do things differently. I kind of like the fact that they're kind of coming out of that shell a little bit and experimenting. Now, to be fair, I have no idea what order these songs were recorded in. This could have been the first one. It could have been the last one. It could be somewhere in the middle. So, as we listen to the album in chronological order by song number, we don't necessarily know how they were recorded. So we can't necessarily judge, oh, look, they're getting better at this as the album goes on, or this is changing or dropping off as the album goes on, because the order of the songs they recorded would really be a major factor in actually seeing what the real progression was, or I guess maybe the way they wrote them, even more importantly, because the recording is just the recording. It's more in the writing sessions. Now, you can change things in the recording sessions. You can go, hey, wait a minute, why don't we try this real quick and see how it sounds? And then all of a sudden you've got a whole different part, or you've got, some counterpoint or something in there that was not in the original writing session. So there's all kinds of possibilities, but that's what makes it so difficult to see how things actually progressed or have progressed through this album. You can only really do that album to album, but then when you know that so many other songs were recorded that weren't included on the album, it's really hard to tell even then. So just taking it by this song, though, I can say that it feels a little more progressive than some of the stuff we've heard over the last couple. And I really like this direction. I think the band sounds really good. I think they really feel and sound like a cohesive unit, like they're really loving being there and working with each other. I get such a good feeling out of this. And hopefully the journey will continue along that same path. We shall see as this season continues. Thanks, guys, for joining me for another episode. We'll see you tomorrow. Cheers. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Uriah Heep, the Magician's Podcast. If you have enjoyed this show, please consider going over to Apple Podcasts or your favorite podcast outlet, leaving a rating or a review. Be sure to subscribe to make sure that you are notified when new episodes are available. Please be sure to share this podcast with your fellow Uriah Heep enthusiasts and anyone who you think would like Uriah Heep, which should be everyone. And if you are so inclined, please feel free to contribute to the Patreon account. And if you are not a Patreon subscriber, you can also pay through the PayPal link on the website listed in the show links below. I would also like to thank Uriah Heep for their very generous support of the show, and thank you guys for listening. We'll see you in the next episode. Happy days!